Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges as he explores turning the page on his life and yours. Hey, Charlie.
Hey, Paul. It's sure good to be here today. I've been reading, and there's nothing unusual about that, but I've been reading books and essays or blogs, and I recently read 2 articles that seemed to spawn a sort of delightful potpourri of thought and conjecture. One article was by author Henry Miller, written by Maria Popova, and the other came from a recent post by Terry Hershey on Sabbath Moment. And these are the kinds of ideas that, for me, demand discussion. So today, I have asked our dear friend, author, and creative thinker, Terry Hershey, to ponder with me on several ideas of, as it turns out at the end, non-related subjects, such as storm homes, and then the totally unrelated subject of the wonder of old age. We will have fun. Yo, Hirsch, let's get Terry on. What's up, man?
Charles, I'm here. I'm ready.
One thing I didn't know for sure if I was interrupting a nap. I'm not interrupting the nap, am I?
I have had my nap, and so I'm ready to go.
Good. You nap. Tell everybody you nap every day for an hour, right?
Yeah, every day for an hour. Correct.
And then the other, we'll get into your private life, which you never talk about. What time do you retire in the evening?
You mean as in?
Go to bed.
To sleep?
Yeah.
I go to sleep at 8 o'clock.
I can't conceive of it. I'm just then eating my ice cream that's making me fat.
Yes, I know. I've been with you at 8 o'clock, and watching you eat ice cream makes me want to go to bed.
Makes you want to get out of the room. Hey, listen, I really liked the essay you wrote. It was either earlier this week or late last week, and you referred to an idea of storm homes. Now, in weather-threatened parts of the country, storm homes are actual places constructed for people to protect them from the violent storms. I'm unfamiliar with such a thing as storm homes. What are the actual places of storm homes?
The concept came from Garrison Keillor. It was one of his stories that he told when he did his Prairie Home Companion.
Yes.
You remember Lake Wobegon, of course.
Of course. I'm going to see him in January.
Yeah. So, and yeah, he's still wonderfully active. And so he would tell stories of the life in Lake Wobegon. And in those places, and I can relate because growing up in southern Michigan, I can relate. We lived quite a ways away, and very often you would walk a long way too, sometimes to school as well. There was walking, and so the weather was an issue. And if you during the winter, we're talking Minnesota for him, Michigan for me, there can be storms that are threatening. For emergencies, every child in the school in Lake Wobegon was assigned a storm home, which was a literal home with people, was nearer to the school for the child to go and stay. The weather was too treacherous to travel. And so on the first day of school, every kid got a slip of paper, and the paper said, your storm home is, and then it told you the name of the family. And Keillor tells this great story of being assigned to the family. I think they're called the Krugers. Anyway, he was assigned to the family. Elderly couple, and he remembers their house, and he imagined. But he always imagined as a boy, whenever he walked by it, is if there was a storm, it's got to be there. And he imagines like the fireplace and like meatloaf and quilted blanket, all this stuff, right? And his head, he always imagined that the father, whoever the storm home father was, Mr. Kruger, he always imagined that he said to the principal, he pointed to him, and he said, that little boy over there, we would like him for our storm child.
Oh.
So he talks about the fact that storms are real, but storm homes are the things that keep us grounded and sane and safe. And that everybody has one, even if it's only mental, emotional, but also we become storm homes to people who are going through that stuff too.
Yeah, it's a beautiful metaphor. I love when you wrote about it, as you wrote about the metaphor describing our personal need for a safe place in times of emotional or psychological or even physical trouble. And then I asked you, I said, apart from you, because you are indeed, I can't believe I'm going public with this, but you are indeed a storm home for me as a friend. But that I love your idea that included, let me go back and said, what other storm homes do I have? Because I was thinking only people, and you said your rituals, your routines, those are storm homes. And so I'm looking at your idea that it's people and patterns, rituals and routines are the storm homes that protect us from a world of danger. And
yeah, exactly.
And many don't have storm homes.
My frame for that is how many don't know what they are. They can't name them, even though they have them.
Yeah, like you named for me. I didn't know correctly.
So
yeah.
Every single one of us has storm homes. Even, for example, even if it's a memory, one of my storm homes was my grandmother's porch swing, where I would always, on that porch swing, literally let go of every one of my defensive boundaries I had about who I had to be, Reverend Terry, as a young kid. Didn't have to carry any of that with me. And that storm home is still in my memory, still part of my psyche.
There's a book in there, Terry.
What the storm home does is it lets you put down ever you have, whatever boundaries you've put up to defend yourself. And it allows you the freedom now to simply be present. This is what a ritual in a good way does for you. Set down need to make sense of this time, and you let yourself be there. That's a storm home. Not defending yourself again.
It's funny, not funny, but it's interesting that I just spoke on it last weekend to a group of people, and I didn't think of it as a storm home, but I talked about a contemplative encounter with God that's based not on information, but rather inspiration and experience. And part of that requires letting go of all the garbage that we're doing and letting go of our troubles, our egos, our manias, our worries, and just getting to a point where we can, at some point, ideally slip into the presence of the divine, which is nothing but healing. The presence of the divine is a healing, a restoring, a bringing back.
The whole thing about the safety of the storm home is that you are safe here. And if you are safe here, it means you as in whatever you have brought with you. In other words, it doesn't require extrapolation. You are safe here. You don't have to be somebody different to be safe here. You don't have to impress anybody to be safe here. You don't have to prove anything to be safe here.
But even getting to that point is a challenge, isn't it? I had somebody ask me the question because we were talking a bit of meditation, and the common theory of meditation is that you get to a point where you're not thinking and you're just in this, your brain is not active. And I just said after 7 years of meditating, I think that's bullshit. I think we live with a monkey mind, and the monkey mind is always at hand and always working. And what I was advised to do by a man who was once a monk was to say that you identify the thought, and you don't reject it, you accept the thought, but you take it then and you just say, thought. You don't try to analyze it, try to go further thinking about it, you just say, you think in your mind, thought. Go away, thought. And that may sound really simple, but it does work. It's a way of annihilating, or at least removing ourselves from that.
Yeah, the monkey mind story that I love is the Buddhist story about the young monk who to meditate and supposed to arrive at some sort of peace during the meditation, and he never does because monkey mind, it's nonstop. And so after X number of whatever it is, months or years, he says to the abbot, I suck at this.
Not meant to be a monk.
All I get is I'm supposed to have this little peace thing. And I get the peace part, but then the monkey mind is there, and so I spend the entire hour or whatever just swatting that away. And he says, Why are you swatting it away? Those things need peace too.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's really good. I wish I knew that and I could have used that last weekend with my talk with people. I think that's very helpful.
What I love about that is you just say to it, go ahead, sit down, you're fine. But we're both meditating. You, meaning the monkey mind, to label the voice to whatever. You don't. You're allowed to be here too. You're also safe. And once I say that to that monkey mind voice, doesn't control the environment.
That's really insightful, Terry. As much as I've studied meditation, I've never heard anyone ever make inference to anything like that. That the monkey mind, that's part of the monkey mind. The monkey mind is typically housed somewhere in the neighborhood of worry and stress or upcoming things that I have to do. And so the monkey mind is not a peaceful mind. And to tell the monkey mind, you are safe here. You don't need to show your presence. You don't need to scream your presence. You are accepted as you are.
Very similar reframing that you get in AA too, which is just parts of the mental monkey mindness of you, but you're allowed to bring it there, and it's safe in that room.
There aren't many, and that leads us back to our idea of storm homes. There are not articulated or defined storm homes. I think for most of our population, I think it's an unknown concept that we have ways of being, ways of doing, ways of thinking that have become our storm homes. Now, many times, our ways of dealing with them have created more storms rather than removal of storms. So tell me, in your life, you have such keen ideas in this. You must have formed some storm homes in your life. Can you share any of those with us?
There's two concepts that help me frame it. Right? One is a Mr. Rogers thing, because anything that I frame about anything that matters to me, that Mr. Rogers is in there somewhere.
Yeah, it had an impact on your life. Yeah.
And so Mr. Rogers said, I was a boy, and I would see scary things in the news. My mother would say, always look for the helpers. You'll always find people who are helping. And so Rogers, those kids always telling the story. To this day, especially in times of disaster, or we can say in storms, I remember my mother's words, I'm always comforted by realizing that there are still so many helpers. That it's about people who allow you to be safe there. So that's the one thing. And then the second one is been the ground zero, right? New York?
I have, yes.
St. Paul's Chapel, which is right near ground zero. It's part of the Episcopal Church there. But it survived ground zero in that it wasn't destroyed. And St. Paul's Chapel, actually the way station for first responders. So, I don't know if you remember when they were digging people out and people were injured and all of that stuff. It actually used St. Paul's, the parish. So the pews were the beds. So St. Paul, and they haven't done it. It's now a museum. It's still a church, but it's a museum. All the places where these people, and this is where all the first responders would come. And there's this is in the museum now. One of the firefighters who had come in because this is their way station for all the responders. One of the first responders said, one of the reporters, I come in that door, I'm covered with blood sometimes, but they hug me, love me, take care of me, treat me as a real human being. And then they feed me, and they massage me, and they give me adjustments. These are my people. This is my place. This is where I come to be with God.
That's beautiful. And it's not just for firefighters or first responders, it's for every one of us. Right. That we need.
But that's the thing for me, the places in my life where people have done that for me. They haven't stopped. All they knew is that I was hurting them. And they created a space.
And do you think some people are more gifted or have a stronger propensity to be a helper than others? Is that something we would like to think all of us have the capacity to do, or do you think there are some that are maybe better at it or more emotionally or spiritually equipped to do such a thing?
I'm sure there's an argument to be made for that, because you see some people, not everybody is a Mr. Rogers. So yes, of course, some people are wired differently. However, having said that, every single one of us has the capacity to be a storm home. And every single one of us has the capacity to say a kind word. Every single one of us has the capacity to hold a hand that needs to be held. Every single one of us.
I did a show last week with a executive coach, Taryn Voget, and we talked about kindness. And love is ineffable. You really can't define it because the field of meaning is so broad, but kindness, there is something tactile to it, something that can be evidenced. And we talked about the conclusion that we can, each of us, through acts of kindness and gentleness and humility, can actually reform another person's identity. Not just make them feel good, but make them change how they think of themselves, change how they view themselves. And so our acts of kindness are that powerful that we can help. I like the word not reform, but RE-FORM, that we reform that person. Have you ever thought of it in that way? That was a new thought for me.
I think of it as kindness is like tethering your boat to a safe place. And every act of kindness allows someone to tether their boat, which is their identity, their well-being. And that's the spillage of kindness.
That's nice, the spillage. Okay, I've got a question before we take a break, and this is, my mind just went off into the most surprising place as you were talking about safety in storm homes and how we all need safety. And I think of those that are raised in traditional conservative religious backgrounds, especially evangelicals and Roman Catholics, of which guilt is such a major part of the theology, and the word sin. People don't have a safe place. Sinners, and I'm talking about every one of us, but let's talk about the ones that are called, I think the Catholics call them venial. Aren't they venial sins, the really bad ones? Oh, the little ones. What are the big ones? Mortal, of course, mortal sins. There is no safe place, Terry. Confession is not even a safe place, because you've got to go out and do something because of what you've done. You've got to go out and make some kind of penance or some kind of action or some kind of prayer. Can you imagine what the church would be like if she were like Jesus and, oh yeah, you did that? Okay, let's work on it. Let's try to stop it, and let's move on to bigger and better things. There is no...
The church I was raised in, literally, there was no such thing as a storm home. We would say that heaven is where you got to go, but you had to jump so many hurdles and hoops to do that. And so God along the way wasn't a storm home either. And in fact, I feared everything that I was taught about God. And so there was no storm home there. That would be accurate.
Yeah.
And I think what happens when fear really is the narrative, defines how we walk through our days. And then if it's fear, then that means slash with performance. In other words,
right.
I have to achieve/do something to impress. In other words, who I am now is not enough. So it's a scarcity model versus a sufficiency model. That's the paradigm. And with that, the thing about a storm home is sufficiency there. No, we didn't have that in my church.
I think
the whole thing about being able to say, someone walks in, you are welcome here. Oh my God. What I loved about it back in the day, they'd say, oh, you're always welcome to our church. Knowing, don't worry, you'll need to change before we accept you.
You're welcome, because you're now You're now a victim, or you're now a project that we are going to repair. And I think that's one of the things I love in my particular Episcopal church. I have not been to many, although I've been going to this one for 30 years. They took St. Benedict's rule, and that's on the bulletin, is treat all guests as Christ.
That's a good.
And that is the acceptance. You are welcome, and our church is a very non-judgmental, very non-legalistic, accepting no matter who you are. Doesn't matter who you are. You're accepted here. You're loved here. You're one of us. And so that's what keeps me going. All right, man. We're going to go from reality to not theology, but philosophy. We're going to move, and so I'm going to test your brain skills, but let's take a break. You are listening to The Next Chapter with Charlie, and this is Charlie Hedges, and I am with my storm home friend Terry Hershey, and we're going to go we're going to make a departure at this point, make a shift that I like to do sometimes in the show. And we've talked deeply about the need for other people, places, ideas, acceptance, all sorts of wonderful things. But I read in Maria Popova, I don't know how many are familiar with Maria Popova, but she has a very famous, millions of subscribers to what's now called the Marginalia and used to be called Brain Pickings. And she would take a book from an author, or sometimes a couple of books from an author, but typically one, and she would write on that author. And the books are very popular. And so she wrote an essay. It was 1,600-word essay on Henry. I'm thinking about how to describe Henry Miller. He was a Nobel Prize nominee. He didn't win it. Nominee, and he is very famous for his for many years censored books, The Tropic of Cancer, but he lived 88 years and was just a profound thinker and regarded highly by the entire community. And I'm going to give Terry, there were 3 quotations that I took from this essay, and I just felt I needed someone to talk to about these. These were important points that meant something to me. And this is the kind of thing, so you get an idea when Terry and I are in our philosophical moods, this is the kind of thing that we will talk about. And so you will see how fun it is for some of you, and how the hell could you guys be interested in that? But that is what it's about. The first one is this, and these are direct quotes from Henry Miller. With advancing age, my ideals have definitely altered. My ideal is now to be free of ideals, free of principles, free of isms and ideologies. I want to take the ocean of life like a fish takes to the sea. My ideal is to be free of ideals, free of principles, and free of isms and ideologies. Hirsch, what do you think of that?
Okay, I'm in favor of it, because the phrase that I use in my writing all the time is the sacrament of the present moment.
Exactly.
So here you go. Do you remember John Duns Scotus?
I do.
From 1300.
Right.
You weren't around then.
No, I was not around. So I don't remember him. I do remember his writings, although I must admit I've only read about him. I've never read original text.
Yeah, anyway, most famous thing I remember about him, he's a Franciscan, but most famous thing I think is a Latin word called, and I can't even pronounce it, even though I took Latin in seminary. Aesthete. Anyway, the Latin word, it means thisness. 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 In other words, here. Specificity of thisness. It's not to be somewhere else, for whatever you were just saying from his quote about swimming in the whatever.
Swimming in the ocean of life, taking to the ocean of life like a fish takes to the sea.
That's being literally in the present. 100% true.
Yeah.
So I say, alternative to that is that you're like 4-year-old children 5 minutes out of the driveway on any family trip. Are we there yet?
Yeah. Yeah.
Done now? I got it. Oh.
Yeah, those are the words I use every time I have to fly coach. And my wife rolls her eyes and curses me.
Anyway, the rest of our talk today, I'd like to talk about what it's like to ride in coach. If you don't mind.
Oh my God. And no, we won't talk about that. I just need a little leg room because I'm so large.
Oh, I used to. This is. I don't know if it has to do with our topic. Back when I used to fly every week, literally.
Yeah.
For years, I was a somebody because you reach a certain status, you're a somebody. Oh, then when what happened and you don't fly anymore, all of a sudden, somebody thing is gone. Anyway, the other quote from Henry.
No, I don't want to abandon this one real quickly. I want to go to it just a little bit because we live in an age of older people. That is, we're going to talk about older people in the next two, actually. But older people, those who grow old gracefully, as Henry Miller would talk about in our next quote, do become free of ideals and free of principles and free of isms and ideologies because they find out they no longer work. They were helpful at one time, and the knowledge of them can be helpful now. But it's like labeling, Hirsch. As soon as we start labeling, we start confining our thought, and we're not free to think creatively, imaginatively. If we are drilled by ideals and principles and isms and ideologies, then we're trying to make everything fit into this preconceived idea. And I think maybe when you're younger, it works, but you reach 3/4 of a century and it just doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't.
My favorite thing to say is that once you label something, you dismiss whatever is there.
You dismiss whatever is there, not whatever is not there. That's interesting.
I'm just saying, you dismiss whatever's there. I've labeled it. In other words, I can't really now embrace it. I can't enjoy it. I can't be here. I can't do anything. I've already labeled it. So I've dismissed it. Gone.
Yes, I get it. It becomes grist for the term that you like so much, scotoma. It becomes grist for scotoma that you only see what you want to see.
See what you want to see, correct.
Yeah. Okay, let's move to, since that one caused so much energy with you, let's move to the next one so we can see what this one does for you. And he says this. Now, he lived until he was 88 years old, and I think he wrote his last book at 80. I think as far as people writing books, I think Goethe wrote Faust. I think he was 80 years old when he wrote Faust. Old people can do interesting things. And he says this, perhaps the most comforting thing about growing old gracefully is the increasing ability not to take things too seriously. I love that. And it's because it just is, it's so resonant with who I am today. I think about all the things that I took seriously, which I cannot remember. Even last week, things that I thought were important things are just not that serious. Now, I'm not saying there are not serious things in life, which there are indeed very serious happenings in life, but I'm thinking of everyday experience. What are your thoughts?
Well, the thing about it is, if I being here now, the thisness, the sacrament of the present moment, is really what matters. In other words, I don't need to arrive somewhere else. I don't need to have the labels tell me how this all fits together. I can be here now. And I actually see things I wouldn't normally see. And here's the irony is I pay attention in ways I wouldn't have paid attention before. Before, I was still looking toward when I was going to get somewhere, when it was going to all fit together, how it was going to make sense. Well, if I'm not doing that, guess what? If I can actually literally pay attention now, the first time in my life, I literally give a damn.
Without it being about me.
Exactly. I literally give a damn. In other words, And so I'm savoring the wonder of it all. I'm savoring the surprises that make me smile big. I'm savoring the gifts and opportunities where I can actually hand out kindness as I go along the way. That wasn't possible. I needed to frame my life such a way I was only looking forward to that.
Oh, I love that. You know what else it reminds me of when we take things too seriously? It reminds me, I'm thinking of in situations with individuals, and there are a couple things going on in my life right now, around, not in my life personally, but around my life, that it becomes so easy if I take these situations too seriously, it becomes very easy for me to become judgmental and to become saying, because these are serious circumstances, and you ought to be, or you should be, or you shouldn't have, or you should, when they just, my ideas about that are not only not helpful to the individual or individuals or organization, but they're not helpful to me. They're harming to me. They're destructive. They throw me into a negative loop and into a regressive spiral. Did that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I am getting more and more fond. I am loving growing older. I just love every bit about it. And we'll see when my health starts to fail what I have to say. But the taking things, that is one thing that I notice more often, how seriously people take circumstances. And they're just not as serious as we think they are.
Yeah, and I think the thing about, because you talked about that, there are real issues in the world that are serious, profoundly serious.
Absolutely.
Taking things too seriously in that framework is that I see that if I do it that way, then that means I see that as all there is. It's now my paradigm lens. And if I see that's all there is, the storms, in other words, is all I'm seeing. If I see that's all there is, I don't see the capacity to make a difference in the storm. I don't see that.
Doesn't that, in a way, take us back to safe homes?
Yeah, it does. And I'll tell you one of my favorite things about getting old.
I could guess at a couple, but I don't think I could put them on the air.
I can actually hide my own Easter eggs now.
What's really terrible is you could guess that there is truth to it. If I have to hide more than two, I'm not going to remember.
Exactly. I didn't even have to make that up.
Okay, let's go to the last one, since these quotes are really not working like the way I wanted them to work. Let's see if I've got anything in the last one, because I know, and it's a longer one, it's a longer quote, but I know you will resonate with it. Finally, number 3, Miller says, "It is curiosity about anything and everything. It is curiosity that made me the writer I am. Even as I have grown older, it has never left me. With this attribute goes another which I prize above everything else, and that is the sense of wonder. No matter how restricted my world may become, I cannot imagine it leaving a void of wonder. In a sense, it might be called my religion. I do not ask how it came about, this creation in which we swim, but I only ask how to enjoy and appreciate it."
So you know that's literally my religion. You know that, right?
Yes, I do know that. That's why I knew I would strike a chord with you on this one.
Yeah. You know, my favorite prayer is Rabbi Abram Heschel.
I do.
So my favorite prayer is one of his prayers. It's, "Dear Lord, grant me the grace of wonder. Surprise me, amaze me, awe me in every crevice of your universe. Each day enrapture me with your marvelous things without number. I do not ask to see the reason for it all. I only ask to share the wonder of it all."
I just love that. And I read, you remember Karl Barth, studying Karl Barth?
Yeah, he was my primary theologian I studied for my degree.
Oh, is he? Is he? Karl Barth says something I'm going to be able to talk about it. I can't quote him. But he said, any theology that does not begin and end with wonder has no business being called a theology.
I wholeheartedly agree with this. But it's the paradigm shift too. The thing that we ask, think about, I tell people because of that, the shift of paradigm, the gift of glimmer, I call it, the gift of wonder, but it's because of the paradigm shift. Typically, the question we ask someone is, did you do today? Meaning, what did you accomplish today? In other words, it's all about how did you frame your day to give it meaning.
Yes.
And I'd ask, tell me where you smiled real big. Tell me where this ordinary day became holy ground. Tell me, gave you the gift of gladness and peace. And we don't ask those questions.
And
I do. That's what I ask.
Well, it's a great question. And you know what I find is so often, as you would say, and producer Paul has written on his whatever one of his gadgets, the hoarder has gadgets all over the room, and there is written on one of the gadgets, the holy is the hiding place, the ordinary is the hiding place of the holy. Yeah. When we're looking for awe and wonder, we're thinking of awe and wonder as, oh, that glorious sunset, which that is awe and wonder, but it is in the everyday, it is in the common, and we catch the wonder that we express to each other and we deal with in a normal basis. I was writing today, and I don't know how much this has to do with wonder, but this has a lot to do with the everydayness. And I was writing about how writing on the difference between the old theologian cataphatic and apophatic theology. One is explaining, the other is experiencing. And then I'm so much into this experiencing thing, I forgot about the wonder of the words, that the words themselves are not wonder, but the words catapult us and prompt us into wonder. And you know what? I was thinking David and Goliath. And I was thinking, here is this guy. Let me just go on with this story just a little bit. Here is this guy, this kid, who's a shepherd, and he decides, because he is so filled with confidence in the power of Yahweh that would defeat this giant warrior. And he says he's going to go out and do it. They try to give him armor so he can fight with warfare or fight with armor, with swords and all that. And he was too small and said it doesn't fit. But he went out, Terry, he goes out with the ordinary. And he doesn't do anything extraordinary except yield a slingshot. And his rock hits the giant in the forehead and kills him. And it's a marvelous story of wonder. It's a marvelous story of the action of the divine working in very ordinary, regular ways. And those words, part of the point is the words themselves are not wonder, but they lead me to ponder the magnificence of David, this ordinary shepherd boy with a slingshot, saves Israel.
You should be a preacher. Right there is already a homily that you can put in the bank.
I was moved. I read it this morning and I was moved.
Oh, that's great, man.
Buddy, look, it's time for us to bid adieu. It's
so good, always good.
It's so good chatting with you. It's just one of my ultimate delights. Thanks for coming on, bud.
Thanks. Ordinary, the hiding place of the holy. Come on.
There you go. I also want to thank our listeners for tuning into the next chapter with Charlie. And until next, this is Charlie Hedges signing off. Bye for now.